All right, hello everyone. Just gonna wait a couple more minutes before we start today's open discussion session. I do see some people joining us on the live stream. So just a few more minutes and then we'll begin today's session. All right, welcome everyone. To another open discussion and various topics. And this is class number 130. Let's begin let's open up today's session with reciting the prayer for spiritual workers, and then we'll move into our Q&A. Prayer for spiritual workers. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their limitations, would smite me. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their weakness, would not heed me. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their ignorance, would defile you through me. And I ask, Almighty God, O wondrous power, that your strength may be given to me now, so that I might be fortified by this, so that I might go forward bravely into the world, and despite reception, send forth my love of thee throughout all races of man. Almighty God, give me the power and strength to rise above my karmic weakness, the deficiencies in the pattern of my evolution, so that I might evolve and become stronger, and even stronger in thy everlasting light. O God, thy will be done. All right. Once again, welcome everyone to another open discussion and various topics. As per usual, feel free to post any questions or comments you have in the chat. And as we go through today's session, we'll do our best to answer those for you. The questions themselves do not necessarily have to pertain to whatever subject matter we're covering in the session. It could be about any metaphysics related subject, and we'll answer those for you. Later on, we will continue our discussion on the realms of consciousness and life after death. I do want to add a brief stop on discussion on karma, because you really can't have an appropriate discussion on life after death or karma without a discussion on karma and with reincarnation. So we will review some previous handouts that we looked at in earlier open discussions, and they were also used in other lectures, previous lectures discussing the subject matter of karma, reincarnation. We'll look at some skaras and the effect they have on the aura, because as we mentioned previously, the auric unit is the body that persists throughout all of our incarnations. And whatever is done to the aura, both positively and negatively, will affect each incarnation in turn. So we'll take a brief look at some skaras and the law of karma, and then we'll come back to maybe today or another session. We'll finish up just this brief survey of life after death and the realms of consciousness. But if you'd like a deeper explanation on the subject matter, I would invite you to look back at our previous lectures. You can go to our playlist and see the lectures organized in collections of lectures or subject matter. And you can also go to the Theory Society and find several lectures by Dr. George King, one in particular called Karma and Reincarnation, another one called Life of the Masters, the Realms of the Masters, sorry, and Life After Death as well. So do we have any questions or comments to start off today's session? I did also want to follow up from last week. We had a question on the gunas. And so I pulled up a couple of handouts where the subject matter of the gunas are discussed. Or illustrated for us. And so we'll look at that a little later as well. I will recap a bit of what we talked about last time. because really we focused on the chakra system, the mystic constitution of man. And then from that, we'll springboard into the realms of consciousness. All right, so if there's no questions as yet, let's do a brief review. As well as take a look at this handout. So this is from a collection of handouts called The Creative Source, the Constitution of Man. If you remember, last couple of sessions, we discussed the work of creation, right, from the absolute and this potential of all things, the Shiva, and that first movement, creating, let me go back up here, sorry. Within that framework of karma, we have all of creation coming from the absolute through the vehicle of spirit, which is both unmanifested and partially manifested, and then the vehicle of the spirit, of the soul. This particular handout talks about on the macro scale of going all the way, supreme laws of creation, the galaxies, solar systems, planetary bodies, and down to the bodies that we currently inhabit. All the way to the different forms of life, mineral life, plant life, fish life, insect life, animal life. This is all information we've seen before and is in, I believe, the 2021 shared folder. So if you go onto, if you look in the description on YouTube, there should be a link to the Google Drive shared folder. And in that Google Drive shared folder, you'll see previous years of handouts that we used in the open discussion sessions. And this is one of those handouts that are there. But what I really wanted to bring attention to today is in this diagram, we have the representation of the auric unit. You can see here in these, this gold solid and outline rays. And it is described as represents the background operating matrix of the soul. Remember in the previous or last session, we talked about how the aura is the vehicle in which the soul uses to gain experience. And within the aura, there are several bodies that are employed, including the physical, astral, etheric bodies. But also mentioned in this diagram, which is unique to it and not in others, is the gunas, or the quality of mind. Remember last week, Nimai described gunas as the levels of mind energy that specifically designated as tamas, rajas, and sattvic. And you'll see in this diagram the gunas, the type of gunas are connected to a level of consciousness or to a psychic center. And as we move up from the base to the Christ center, up to the crown center, the gunas or quality of mind increases in clarity and in purity. The lowest level of mind being tamas gunas, represented in the Muladhara and the Svadhisthana chakra. Then move up to a higher quality, the rajas gunas, represented in the Manipura and the Anahata chakras. And the sattvic gunas, the highest quality of mind, represented in the Vishuddha and Ajna chakras. Now, there are many things that can affect the quality of mind which we operate from and utilize. Essentially, our thoughts and our words and our actions. The more we feed the particular quality of mind, the more that quality of mind will be expressed within us and through us. Also, the quality of energies we take in, be it through physical foodstuffs or liquids, or even the actions of breathing, the things we take in through our eyes, the sounds we take in through our ears, and so on and so forth, can affect the quality of mind we operate in. And so, like last week, one of the questions was talking about how I think the questioner was referring to how when they eat hot peppers, it stimulates their body and the quality of mind. We mentioned last week as well, there's certain foods excite certain qualities of mind within the aura. And so I just wanted to follow up with that and just take a brief look at the gunas. There's a question here. What is the result of man when all his energetic bodies are connected to spirit?
Go ahead and read that question again.
The question reads, what is the result of man when all his energetic bodies are connected to spirit?
Well, all the bodies are connected to spirit, but the energies have been involved to a basic level. In other words, in creation, there's a cycle, it's involution, and then there's evolution. So the soul forms the auric body, and the auric body is used as a shell or a substance in order to create the lower basic bodies, in order to create this thing that we live in called consciousness. And then from there, we began to evolve the consciousness. So we are always connected to spirit and to soul, but we have to harness the lower bodies, the lower basic bodies, in order to recognize the massive force of the soul and the spirit. So now you're saying that once the lower bodies are, this is how I interpret it, what you're trying to say, once the lower bodies are calibrated to a level that it can harness the powers of the higher self of the higher bodies and the soul and the spirit, what happens? Well, essentially, you become a bodhisattva in the Sanskrit terms. In the English terms, you become a cosmic master or avatar that can lead that can become a part of the spiritual hierarchy of this earth, or leave this earth and go to other planets in order to continue your advancement. That's a loaded question. So I mean, it's because there's hundreds, maybe thousands of steps that needs to happen in order to actually explain that. I hope that answers your question. You have anything to say, Bernard?
No, other than the fact that he's describing man's true state, and it's just the illusion, both real and sort of kind of unreal, that stops us from realizing what we truly are. And if you look at how an entity or a thing is defined or described in philosophy, they tend to define anything that exists in its highest evolutionary state. So if you look at a apple seed, or you look at a apple, or you look at, say, a seedling of a redwood tree, they don't look at that as a seedling. They always describe it as the fullest fruition of that thing itself. So man should be defined as spirit, just like man in philosophy is defined as a state, because that's the highest evolutionary form of our individual self. So he's just described, the question he's asking is just describing his true self. It's just the layers, both real and unreal, that stop us from realizing what we really are.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? Any additional questions? Great. Now, in this handout, it also,
Dwayne,
yes,
I have a more updated, that last one you had.
the creative.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go ahead, but I can email it to you.
Okay. So now in this handout, also talking about the gunas. So let me get this out of the way. So you'll also see, why I like this handout as well, representation of the levels. We'll get into this more detail when we talk about life after death, when we divide the levels into level 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth, or -1, -2. And then you'll hear that a lot, particularly in listening to teachings and transmissions from the Ethereal Society. And they talk about actions that are taken on the various realms. And there's also subdivisions of the realms as well, but that's I'll discuss later on. But here you'll see the quality frequencies of man's consciousness, tamas, rajas, and sattvic. And you'll see where the overlap with the 7 upper chakras, where the energies represent themselves, and also introduced here the 7 lower chakras. And we'll look at that in a bit more as we talk again on the realms of consciousness and life after death. But you'll see as we go from a more dark inert type to a pure type of consciousness, how these levels of mind are represented. And I want you to keep this in mind as well as we continue on a discussion, particularly on the samskaras, the auric units, and how the aura progresses through lives. You have on the far left-hand side the tamas gunas, which is this dark, inert type of consciousness. It's primarily represented in the lower chakras, as particularly the 7 lower chakras, being the Atala chakra, the hips, which represent more of a state of fear and lust, the Vitala chakra, -2, and the thighs region, a state of raging anger, the Sutala chakra, -3, and the knees area is retaliatory or jealousy. The Talatala chakra, -4 at the calves, is prolonged mental confusion. And level -5, Tirasatala chakra, the ankles is selfishness. The Mahatala chakra, the feet area, the absence of consciousness. And the Patala chakra, -7, the soles of the feet, as murder and malice. So when we talk about these samskaras and the impressions that it leaves upon the aura, how the samskaras are created, what effect they have on the aura. Remember, we also mentioned that the thoughts that we express don't necessarily come from the mind, or the brain matter. They travel through the brain, which was, as Dr. George King describes, as a transmission set that taps into various levels of mind frequency or realms of consciousness. And depending on the realm of consciousness we are operating upon, you'll see the thoughts, images, or forms coming in and out of those centers. So as we look at this chart and we look at particularly the 7 lower chakras, when we are operating in states of fear, lust, states of anger, jealousy, selfishness, malice, you notice that we're not operating at the higher states of mind, meaning rajas or sattvic, but we're operating in a lower state of mind, the tamas, and the consciousnesses that we're pulling from are from the negative realms, or the lowest states of consciousness, the patala, matala, stula, vitala, and so forth. And prolonged activity in these lower chakras, in these lower states, hinders, retards, or limits the level of consciousness that we are able to work upon and express ourselves on. One thing you'll hear both Nehemiah and Dr. George King repeat over and over and over and over again is when talking about karma, it's never referred to as a punishment. And they never refer to it as a punishment. Each and every single time they refer to karma as a teacher. And when we take upon the actions of constantly lowering our state of mind and remaining in states of fear or in anger or in jealousy, this referred to as dark inert type of consciousness that we work upon affects us. It affects our mental state. It affects our emotional state. It affects the energy that we're able to take into our auras, and it affects the energy that we're able to release through our auras. And that harms the aura. It scars the aura. It damages the aura. You can even see it reflected in the faces and the eyes of a person in the way they express their consciousness when Nehemiah tells us that sound is consciousness, and you can tell the level of consciousness someone is operating upon by the way they speak, the way they carry themselves, the actions they partake in. So this constant indulgence in the lower chakras and lower energy states damages our aura and makes it harder for us to manifest the levels of mind and consciousness that are expressed at the higher realms of consciousness, the higher levels of consciousness, the higher psychic centers. And what are those types of energies? So you have the base chakra, starting at the base, moving upward, the Muladhara chakra, memory, time, and space. That's if you go back and look at I had it pulled up before, but I decided not to go into it. But there's a question before about the 7 dimensions of creation. Time and space are part of that. The Svadhisthana chakra, the sex center, the home, or sometimes they might refer to the seat of our consciousness. The Manipura chakra, the solar plexus, motion, manifestation of willpower. The Anahata chakra, the heart center, meaning, purpose, sustaining willpower. Vishuddha chakra, level 5, here, state of purification. Ajna chakra, state of divine sight, of the Christ center. And the Sahara chakra, the crown center, illumination, a state of godliness. The only 2 energies that really begin to express themselves in the higher and upper chakra centers is the Rajas and Sattvic. Actually, isn't it correct that the Sattvic has more of an expression in the higher centers than is represented here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And in fact, the Sattvic really is on all the centers. It's a background. Yes. It's like a background operating system, because it's always guiding, always trying to lift up, but we fail to grasp it. And you can have, a sense of anger in the higher chakras, but that anger can be more analytical,
right,
or disappointment, because there's always opposite. There's always a positive opposite force to those emotions, but we just express them on more of a negative level. Basic man does, than a higher level. You know, in the book by what's called Maybelle Collins,
Light on the Path.
Light on the Path, and she states that you kill out desire, but embrace desire. So that's what she meant. There's for every one of these so-called impurity traits, there's a positive part of it. There's a positive element and there's a negative element to it. And we have to shift our consciousness to that positive, because that positive is a more balanced way of expressing that energy.
I see there's any questions. Let's see any questions. All right, nothing yet. Okay, so Just keep this in mind as we continue, because I did think it was important to look at the gunas, not only to as a refresher from, or to expand further on the question presented last week, but as we move into a discussion on or a review of karma, because again, it'll go a long ways in helping us to understand the cycles of reincarnation and life after the initiation of death. Karma means actions. All actions consist of good, bad, and a mixture of both. So you can have, again, when we talk about karma, Nehemiah likes to refer to it, or it teaches it as a framework of laws in which all creation operates. In this same series of handouts, you can see that framework is illustrated as the grid in which representations of galaxies, solar systems, planets, and all forms of life and matter operate within. They are the rules of nature in which govern all of creation. All actions fall within the laws of karma. Karma is a framework that the absolute God manifested creation within. Every action made is restricted and limited by this divine law of karma. Karma is a law and power that allows the movement towards involution and progress towards evolution. We live, move, and have our being within the confined laws of karma. Or as the Master Jesus says, as you sow, so shall you reap. So when we operate in our daily lives and feed certain levels of mind, be it the Rajasic, the Tamistic, or Sattvic, we activate aspects of the law of karma, either for our benefit, evolutionary, or our detriment, involutionary. Sometimes you'll often hear mystics and teachers of the occult sciences refer to white, black, and gray magic. Now, it has nothing to do with race, just a way of delineating types of actions. So white magic refers to all right actions or positive evolutionary actions. Black magic, all wrong actions or negative and involutionary actions. And gray magic is a mixture of right and wrong. So when you have here in this grid on the left-hand side, it breaks down the difference between really the basic and advanced man, or basic and advanced being. Karma is every action. And it really is a combination of good actions, some good actions, and a combination of bad actions. Or combinations of good actions and the combination of bad actions yields a result of the karmic tapestry that we weave for ourselves. In a very basic man, you can have, or a more advanced basic man or higher basic man, you have a higher percentage of good actions and a lower percentage of negative actions, of bad actions. And that will yield a more positive karmic result in their life and in future lives. And then later on, we'll get into examples of that. But in a more involved basic man, you have a higher percentage of negative or bad actions being combined with a lower percentage of positive actions. And then that yields a particular karmic result, again, affecting them in this life and in subsequent lives thereafter. And then you have an ultra positive or an highly advanced man, where you have the highest possible amount of good actions within a near 0% of bad actions produce the highest possible karmic result, allowing for further evolution of that individual. You'll notice here, or you won't notice here, any outside agency punishing or rewarding, be it the basic man or the advanced man or anyone. Karma doesn't punish, it teaches. There are the sets of laws or the framework in which govern creation. And when we align our actions, our thoughts, words, and actions with positive evolutionary karma, we are then advancing ourselves. When we align our thoughts and actions with involutionary negative karmic aspects of karma, we are involving or limiting ourselves. We create our own karma. We author our own karma. And when Nehemiah defines, I believe it's enlightenment as predetermining all of our actions. When we predetermine all of our actions, that means we don't just act as animals in a reactionary way, reacting to everything that happens to us. We determine the results that we want to accomplish. He even teaches us this in work in our professional lives, where he says, this is the particular result or goal that we're going to, that we want to accomplish. Let's sit down and think it out, make a checklist of all the actions that we need to take in order to accomplish this particular result. And we are intelligently predetermining all of our actions so that we are operating towards enlightenment, be it in business, our personal lives, in school, and our relationships, what have you. And that's really the principle behind yoga, where yoga is union with God. We're aligning all of our actions to accomplish the goal of yoga. We're intelligently choosing the right actions to take that will have the highest and best evolutionary results as we move forward to accomplish union with God. It says, intent or intention describes the type of power behind any action. You have good intention, which sets in motion good karma, and bad intention set in motions bad karma. And you'll see Madame Blavatsky describe the difference between, like, for example, white and black magic actions as intention, right? Dr. George King famously says that you can pray with the intention of healing, or you can pray with the intention of doing harm. Prayer in and of itself is not good or bad, but it is the intention that colors that action that makes it one a white magic or another a black magic. Now, we mentioned before the effects of samskaras. These are the scars or the impressions that are left upon the aura. Illustrated in this picture here is our mystic man or person, the aura and the various levels of the aura. These green dots here are circles of various sizes and shapes are the representation of samskaras. And these samskaras, through time, work their way through the auric layers to the various valence levels, as Nehemiah referring to these layers as valence levels, which really helped me to understand it. If you think about this, the structure of molecules and atoms, the different valence levels of the aura, depending on environmental conditions or both inner and outer environmental or circumstances you're in, these samskaras waiting for opportunity to express themselves or manifest themselves as they get closer and closer to the outer layers of the aura. These samskaras here in the center represent stored samskaras from past thought and actions from life experiences. So if you kind of think about it, remember we talked about that our thoughts come through the chakras. We looked at some of the thoughts energies expressed in the lower chakras and some of the thoughts and energies expressed on the higher chakras, and the tamas, rajas, and sattvic qualities of mind express themselves or come through the level of mind we're operating upon, and then express themselves as they move further and further through the auric unit. And they can be, like I mentioned, either of a positive karmic type or a negative karmic type. They can be professional skills, samskaras that fuel athletic ability, samskaras that fuel social ability. The types of samskaras that are embodied within the aura depend upon the types of thoughts and actions we entertain throughout our various lives. When the initiation of death occurs and the physical and astral body are discarded, we still carry forward that auric unit in which all of these samskaras are still there. These samskaras are awakened up by actions and present conditions. So there can, and most definitely are, samskaras within the aura that are waiting to be woken up and expressed either in this life and or maybe even 10, 20, 100 lives down the line. Now, they can be samskaras implanted from actions expressed in anger or in jealousy, or they can be samskaras implanted from actions of service or in healing. It's all dependent upon us. Remember, we are the authors of our karma, that karmic tapestry, that we're the ones that weave it and then express it in present and future lives. There's nothing punishing us or rewarding us. It is the fruits of our own efforts coming to bear in either present or future lives. There are three types of karma. Sanchita karma, accumulated karma from past, meaning previous lives, thoughts, and actions. Prarabdha karma. All right, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing these Sanskrit terms. Your present karmic state of being, the karmic energy configuration that make up your present subtle bodies and physical body. And Vartarmana karma, karma acquired during the present lifetime and that will bear fruit in the future. So you can say that the majority, well, I'm asking, this is a question, Nehemiah. Can you say that the conditions, the circumstances, and really the karma expressing itself that we feel now, today, is majority a combination of Sanchita karma, which is from past thoughts and actions, and Prarabdha karma, karma from our present state of being?
Yeah, that's true. Your past and present. That's the majority of your karma that you're experiencing right now in the present.
And so when we think about that, we've lived possibly millions of lives prior, and all of that Sanchita karma is like a, each one of these samskaras I'm representing is like a tiny snowflake that once falls upon the side of a snow-covered mountain. As it rolls down the mountain, it gets larger, and that snowball gets larger and larger and larger, and has heavy influence on not only in our temperament, our attitudes, our mentality, our personality in this present life, the Sanchita karma, but is also still continually being molded and shaped by that Prarabdha karma. That even though we may feel certain tendencies or temperaments, we still have the power to choose whether we give into those, say, like our baser instincts, the lower aspects of mind represented in the lower centers and in the astral centers, or we can choose to not give in to those temptations and desires and to express higher states of mind, either through positive actions, be it service, prayer, and one of the most positive actions taught to us and given to us, the practice of mantra japa, which we'll get into in a bit, and how that affects the aura and samskaras. We can choose to not give in to those lower, those passions, as referred to, and thereby exacerbating and expressing those negative samskaras, or we can choose to transmute them, to burn them up, and to tap into higher states of mind by tapping into higher, more spiritual actions.
Yeah, I tell you one thing. Something happened in my life with friends of mine. That was we were graduating from high school, going into college, and all of us were members of the Their Society. We respected the teachings of Dr. George King, and several of them, wanted to join the military, and one of them wrote a letter to Dr. George King, to the Their Society, asking about that. Because one of the things he was looking at is joining the military and being able to go to college. He wanted to put in so many years and then go to college. And very interesting, Dr. King, what he did, he gave what we call now the ACE series. He gave an address on one of the following Sundays after he received the letter, and he talked about that he gave the answer indirectly through his address, and he made the point that if we have these comic experiences and we have these opportunities to do something right and to do something good. And he said one of the things about joining groups or groups with a long history, when you join that group, when you reach that fault line and you make that decision to join that particular group, you take on the karma of that particular group.
Mm-hmm.
So all your karmic lessons, whether they were good, bad, or indifferent, to get you where you are, you met with an opportunity, you met with a decision, and based on that decision can throw you back or forward. And that was the most interesting thing at that time to me, especially being, a young teenager or I was either in my teens or my 20s, because joining the military, being all the things that the military did to countries around the world or to individuals, you join them in those actions. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a collective karma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I understood him to say. So it's, as you take on your karma, as you deal with your past karma, you may join in with other groups of consciousness karma by making the wrong decision to go with them without the proper due diligence of thinking through things, doing that checklist that I always talk about, predetermining your actions.
Mm-hmm.
Because you might be doing very well and then all of a sudden you join a group of people or frame of mind and not knowing their history, but you link yourself karmically with that group.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing we have to look at. I think in the past, which we are not permitted to do anymore, but that's what a lot of yogis, they used to go into the wilderness so that they don't link themselves
Right.
with society. But we're told now to make the hard decision and be among everyone, but don't necessarily participate in those things that harbor great harm to society.
And piggybacking off of that, where I believe it was Mars Sector 6 who declared that the change from isolating oneself to being within, well, it was present in the teachings for a long time. Look back at it. But the yesterday I had watched a service by the Theorist Society, and in that service, I believe it was a service of thankfulness for latest phase of Operation Sunbeam. And in that service, they played an extract from a transmission that Dr. George King, a lecture Dr. George Cave gave. And he started off the lecture with the measure of greatness is the amount a man evolves the ones around them, or everyone he comes into contact with. And he repeated that statement twice. And when he started that lecture, I'm not quoting it correctly. I'll go back, let's do it again, and then bring the proper quotation. But I thought about that. It came to mind again as you were just talking in my saying that we're no longer allowed to isolate ourselves, but to stay in the world, but yet remain not of it. And part of that is, that's exactly, I would think the reason for that is what Dr. George King mentioned at the opening of that lecture, is that true greatness or real greatness is not what we can accomplish in and of ourselves, how strong I can make myself, or how powerful I can make myself, or how far I can even advance myself. But it is the amount that we evolve all those around us and all those we come into contact with, how we can help them advance, how we can help them grow, the level of service we can offer to all those around us. And that's, in my mind, really the difference in the path of freedom and evolution, or the challenge of evolution laid out to us at present. When we look back at all of the lectures and classes that Nehemiah has given us throughout the years, it is easy to make the improper assumption that it is all about the evolution and advancement of the individual. And it's not, even though we'll say, like in this collection of talks we're having right now, we're looking at the samskaras that affect you, how to burn out some samskaras or create positive samskaras. The effect is to all of those around you. Like I was just saying, be very careful of the group consciousnesses or the collectives that you join, because they have an effect on you, but inversely, you also have an effect in all of those around you. And you'll see all the missions that are given to the members in the Ethereal Society to this day are missions that prioritize the positive evolutionary effects we have on everyone else. In other words, the service that we can give to others. For example, prayer power is a great example of that. The techniques given in You Too Can Heal is a great example of that. Spiritual healing techniques given to us by Dr. George King is a great example of that. And even though there are practices given for us for our own self-development, example, the practices given in Contact Your Higher Self through yoga, it is with the intention that we take the fruits of those practices and then give them through selfless service to others. And part of the reasoning and the science behind that are these three fundamental types of karmic acts that we're going to go into right now. Again, you'll see them delineated or divided into what we looked at before, the gunas, or the types of mind. There's the sattvic, rajas, and tamastic types of karmic actions. The lowest type of karmic actions, the tamas, number 3, those are actions of an individual that is deluded and confused and have no concern for moral or spiritual intentions in their actions. So think about that. Deluded and confused and has no concern for moral and spiritual actions. It is only in that state of mind, look at the previous handout, where those types of hate, jealousy, anger, greed, those negative passions and traits can really be expressed, though that tamastic type of actions in mind. As we move up to rajas karmic actions, actions taken in a state of embodied consciousness, the individual state of I, pure attachment and ownership of Maya. And then you go up to sattvic, the highest type of karmic actions. The actions performed without attachment by a person who is not looking for return on their actions. As you move down from sattvic, rajasic, and tamastic, it becomes more selfish. It becomes more about I, me, and my individual concerns. But as you move up from tamas, rajas, and sattvic, it becomes more selfless. And actions performed without any attachment by a person. And as you are selflessly performing these actions, you're not performing them for your own good. You're performing them for the benefit, for the evolution, for the advancement of others. And as Dr. George King defines that as the true measure of greatness. But I'll go back and listen to it, and I'll get the exact quote, and I'll share that with everyone, because I don't want to misquote that. It was a really poignant point that that George King made as he opened that lecture, and I wanted to share that with everyone. So we talked at length about the negative samskaras and the energies as they express themselves and what they are, including attachment, anger, malice, greed, jealousy, and so on. So let's now shift to a focus on the positive samskaras, which clears the auric fields and enhances sensory perception and spiritual development. You'll notice the difference between the positive and negative samskaras in the auric illustrations. On the negative side, you have all these ripples or distortions in the aura. And these ripples and distortions inhibit the movement of energies and levels of mind in and through and around the aura. But as we adopt more sattvic karmic actions and bring in more positive samskaras such as detachment, unselfish love, kindness, devotion, prayer, mantra, yoga, mudra, etc., it cleans up the auras, the auric unit, removes these levels of distortion, and allows for more free flow of both the sensory perceptions, a clear flow of the sensory perceptions, and spiritual development and energies moving in around the aura, or smoothens out the auras, or it stops the modifications. The auric body is the vehicle the soul uses to move from one life cycle to the next, while gaining experience on the various planes of existence. The physical plane, the gross physical plane, which we're currently inhabiting, is used for the soul to gain the gross physical experience on the physical realms of existence. The astral planes is used by the soul to gain mental experiences on the subtle physical realms of existence. The accumulation of thought and actions of the physical determines the astral existence that you will live through on the subtle physical worlds after death. Keep that in mind, because that's going to transition us into the rest of our discussion on life after death. The accumulated thoughts and actions of the physical and astral planes determine the next physical life you will live through. All right, so those last two sentences describe two types of existence. And we'll go into more detail about that as we move over into the other handouts. It says the accumulation of thoughts and actions of the physical, meaning the accumulated thoughts and actions of our present physical existence in our gross physical bodies, determines the astral existence that you will live through on the subtle physical world. So after the death of the physical body is discarded. And we transition to what some incorrectly determined, but it seems to be quite popular, referred to as the spirit realms, or the realms after death. After the initiation of death, you spend some time on either the astral or the etheric planes, depending on your level of evolution. You continue more or less the existence you had in your physical life and in your subtle life. Nehemiah first says that if you're a dummy in the physical existence, you'll be a dummy on your actual existence. So you don't necessarily just become some angel or some demon after the initiation of death. You more or less go to the realm that you deserve to go to, and you continue more or less your existence there until it is time for you to once again take upon a physical body and be reintroduced into the physical realm through birth and so on. And that's the existence described in the second sentence, the accumulated thoughts and actions of both their previous gross physical existence and your time on the astral plane will go heavily towards molding and shaping the experience you'll have in your next physical incarnation. Even if thou art the most sinful of all sinners, yet shalt thou cross over all sins by the raft of wisdom. As the burning fire reduces fuel to ashes, O Arjuna, so doth the fire of wisdom reduce all actions to ashes. Verily, there is no purifier in this world like wisdom. He that is perfect in yoga finds it in the self in due season. Many times in classes, if you look back in previous lectures, you'll see Nirmaya constantly encouraging us to study the teachings, study the ancient wisdoms, even going so far as to collect those teachings and make them available for us all for free online to download and study. And then even taking it another step further in providing these diagrams and lectures and even his own materials, his books and other materials, to help us further understand and digest and these teachings. And why is that? It's just mentioned here in this quote from the Gita: the fire of wisdom reduces all actions to ashes. You cannot intelligently predetermine all your actions if you lack the wisdom of what right and wrong actions are. And it's through that Nani yoga that we're able to, first of all, differentiate between these negative and positive samskaras. Number two, to reject these negative karmic actions and embrace these positive karmic actions to allow us to be one that is perfect in yoga. Dr. George King defines the highest level of healing as giving the right teaching. And the reason he does so is because it is with those teachings, with that wisdom, we are able to correct our path and to steer the vessel, our ships, away from the rocky shores that leadeth to destruction and involution, and properly navigate our journey through evolution towards higher and higher levels of spiritual development and enhancement. So do take advantage of these teachings, these lessons, these illustrations, the books, the lectures, the audios that are given to you at this time. If you think back and really ponder about it, there was a time period in the past where access to the teachings could not be gained without significant sacrifice and initiation by the students, by the seeker. But now, at this age, at this period, they are given to us and pretty much laid at our feet because it is that important for us to really begin to take control of our evolutionary journey and advance not only ourselves, but all of humanity and the world as a whole as we continue to move into the next age, which is already dawning upon Earth. So that's the aura. That's the samskaras. And well, let me see, look at the chat. And I'll ask you, Nehemiah, do you think we should continue, or is that quite a bit for today?
That might be quite a bit to go to another subject. Might be too complex, I think.
Okay. So then with that, I will stop here. But next time, I actually wanted to go into the review of the physical body aspect, but we'll see that for next time.
This
is a new one that you're working on, and it's I wanted to go on this in the beginning as a review of what we looked at, the Mystic Constitution, but I skipped over that one. Next time, we'll go into the realms of consciousness proper. I think we have enough background to go into that. And then we'll go into the cycle of samsara, of the reincarnation. And we'll look at what happens at physical death, what happens in that time period we spend in between lives, what happens right before we take on another incarnation, and how that we'll discuss briefly the process in which our next life is determined, who determines what conditions and circumstances we incarnate into. Is it God judging us, or is it we judging ourselves? We'll discuss that. And then we'll talk about things we can do to help not only improve our current lives, or to maximize our current lives to the highest and best possible outcome, as well as actions we can take at present to influence and mold and shape our future lives to the highest and best possible outcomes that they can have to help us along our cycle of reincarnation, and eventually breaking the wheel of samsara to evolving to higher and higher levels of spiritual advancement. So do we have any final questions or comments, or is there anything that you want to add, Maya?
No. Did you get the email I sent you?
Yes, I did. It's a Visio file, right? So I'm going to open it and convert it over. Yeah. A little bit later on. Bernard, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, I wanted to go back to a slide you had briefly up. I think it had the 7 tissues, but no, it's just
the 7 tissues.
Yeah. That wasn't the name of the file. I just noticed it when they were breaking down the blown blood.
Yes, this one.
The physical body.
Yeah.
This one?
No,
yeah.
the physical body.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one.
That's it right there.
Okay.
Go down to the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, go to page 2.
No, it's not finished.
Oh, okay. All right. No, it just caught my eye. That's all. For the physical body.
Mhm.
There was another one to that, though.
There is, you may have finished it, but this one you sent me was just the first page. Or there was another handout with this one, yeah. Yeah, this one is titled Visio, the gross physical body aspect. I think you sent it to me earlier this year. All right, so are there any final questions or comments? And again, if you don't feel comfortable posing questions during open discussion sessions, you can send them to us via email, and we can answer them for you either privately, either by replying to the email, or if you're okay with us posing the question in a future session, we can do that and answer it for you, so that you can go back and watch the open discussion videos at a later time. All right, so if there are no final questions, let's close out today's session with reciting the New Lord's Prayer. Let me resume this here. And as a reminder, I mentioned earlier the lecture, The Realms of the Master, the Realms of Consciousness, and Karma and Reincarnation. You can pick those up at aetherius.org. Let me pull it up. On the web store, you can either download it or purchase a CD. I think they have more lectures available via download than they do on physical CD, which makes sense. So you're currently seeing that on your screen. Yes. Okay. So you can go to aetherius.org and go to shop, either audio downloads. Audio downloads might be the best. I'm not sure why it's showing in pounds, but okay. And here is Levels of Consciousness, Part 1, the Spirit World. Levels of Consciousness, Part 2, the Realms of the Masters. And I think on other subsequent pages, you'll find Karma and, oh, here it is, Karma and Reincarnation download. And I think it might have something to do with, oh, there we go. All right, so you can go there and download those lectures, listen to them, and many others. Imagination, Your Creative Faculty is a great one. Conservation Contemplation, another great one. Okay, here we go in USD. Man's Mind is a great one. All right, so you can pick up those lectures, download them, listen to them. And if you have any questions or comments in any of the material presented in Dr. George King lectures, feel free to bring them to us and we'll do our best to answer those for you. All right. Let us close today's session with reciting the New Lord's Prayer. The New Lord's Prayer. O divine and wondrous Spirit, O everlasting Lord of hosts, send forth now through me thy great and lasting power. Allow me, Almighty God, the lasting privilege of radiating to all the world thy great love, so that those who suffer may be given the power and energy to rise above their weaknesses. Almighty God, in great humility do I ask you to send forth your power, to give to me this great lasting privilege of being a channel, so that my suffering brothers may be helped and guided and healed and lifted into thy light, so that they who know not may look up and in doing so receive to their higher selves your divine counsel. Almighty God, this day have you granted me a divine privilege. I ask you now to give to me the strength so that never again will I turn from my inner vision of you. Oh, great peace, great peace, great peace. In praise of your greatness, O God, doth my soul sing. Grant it energy to sing on forever and forever. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for your kind attendance and participation. Do hop over to mysticknowledge.org and take advantage of all the resources we make available for you for free, including the ebooks, other resources. Visit thetheorist.org for various lectures and teachings that are also made available for you, and as well on our YouTube channel. Take a look at our previous lecture series. You're welcome to view any lecture series and bring any questions from those lectures forward to us, and we'll answer those for you. Thank you again for participation, for your attendance, and we'll see you next time. Have a wonderful week.